Are you worried about fascism? There is a big difference between throwing around the term when you don't get your way and setting up circumstance where your political side has sole permanent political power. 1. Exploiting off-year elections to take over school boards. 2. Eroding public education so that potential voters are ignorant enough to want your agenda rather than selecting because of your logic. 3. Gerrymandering the F out of your state so that fewer voters get more say in how the federal government is run. 4. Indoctrinating law students for decades to grow the kind of judges you want on the bench, instead of taking the organic ones that happen to agree with you. 5. Constantly distracting people about the most stupid and puerile topics so they don't notice you, stealing their potential wealth. I could go on. Well, not so much scared that America is moving towards fascism, so much as observing for certain that it is doing so, and preparing accordingly. Hell yes. Vermin. Project 2025. Detailed plans to fill the bureaucracy with loyalists who will prosecute his enemies, using the U.S. military to suppress protests on Inauguration Day. Mass deportations with concentration camps. Laughing at rallies about Paul Pelosi almost getting murdered in his home. Constant praising of dictators. And this is all in the last few weeks. There is nothing subtle about it. He is telling us what he is going to do. People need to understand how close we are to an authoritarian catastrophe. When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross. Yes, there is a strain of American fascism that is stronger and more virulent now than it has been in the last 100 years. However, people that subscribe to this belief don't actually think they're fascist since the word has been overused and cheapened so much. It's a crazy time. If you haven't seen much talk about fascism, you haven't been paying attention. Experts on fascism have been warning about the warning signs in America for years now. Here's what the fascists of the 1930s were into. Robust nationalism coupled with a suspicion of minorities who were considered insufficiently patriotic. Hitler blamed Jews for a lot of things, including the fact that many were leftist. Karl Marx was Jewish, as were Leon Trotsky and Vladimir Lenin. And Hitler hated commies more than anything anti-LGBTQ. The first books the Nazis burned were LGBTQ books at a sex research institute. Anti-leftist use of private militias with privately owned weapons to fight leftists, co-opting religion to make it more patriotic, and to use it as a tool of the state. Franco in Spain was a devout Catholic. Nazi soldiers had "God with us" engraved on their belt buckles, and the German churches were under pressure to make their sermons more patriotic, and most complied. Do you think both sides are doing that? The fact that Trump even has a chance after last time makes me extremely worried about it. Trumpism pumped a lot of fear into ignorant people in this country, and they are okay with fascism. It's just being branded as something else. Yeah, we have a Maho presidential candidate promising to arrest his enemies, put military in the streets to eliminate any protests, put people in concentration camps, and whole bunch of other scary ideas. Yes, right-wing Christian fascism is a big problem in this country. It will get its hooks in if we aren't careful. Very. Fascism is making a major comeback across the planet, including the US. If you want to argue both sides, ask yourself which side is burning books, attempting coups, and wants to block people from voting? Which one has a charismatic leader who hates the Constitution and encourages hate crimes from his fans? Not worried. We can't get worse than what Nixon was up to. The blue states and cities are strongholds. There's no going back to 1972, let alone the 1950s or 1880s. Full-blown Hitler or Mussolini or Franco-style fascism requires too many conditions that can't fly. In the US, elements of fascism, sure, but those are already here and in almost any society. We could get into a liberal democracy territory in many states and on the federal level. But the blue states and cities are too strong. The red states and burbs wouldn't tolerate classic fascism either, though they keep electing a liberal theocrats. https en.wikipedia.org/wiki/fascism wprov equals sfti1. No. The world has been close to ending my entire life. I'm beginning to think people are just wrong. 9/11 was as close as I got to feeling like the world was ending. There are some pretty shocking similarities between fascist revolutions and the current language being used by the GOP, in addition to some of the political maneuvering being done at the federal and state levels. On top of this, Project 2025 basically lays out how to consolidate power in the executive branch, while neutering all the different bureaus that help keep the president's decisions and power in check. It's pretty scary if you think about it too much. Yes, I'm worried about it. I'm worried because in midterm elections the voter turnout is 40% and for presidential elections, it's about 50%, less than half, because they can't be bothered. But the fascists out there make sure to show up. Everything the Republicans say is confession and projection. No, fascism is a very specific ideology that has very little presence in the USA. More worried about the government sending billions to other countries and printing more money, devaluing our currency, making it harder on us tax slaves to a government that doesn't spend our own tax money on us. Yes, Christian nationalism is like manifest destiny but for their own country.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.